I sat here and watched AWiB's video, I just could not help but think, saying, oh my, like, I wonder what I would have done if I had such opportunity growing up. Such a group of women that I can reach out to that would have mentored me, inspired me, guided me. So I really want to take this opportunity to express my really deep gratitude and appreciation to AWiB, its members, the men and the few men and most of the women that are sitting in this room to inspire, uplift, and support women. I always say women deliver, and so do good few men. So we need all of you. So it's really such an honor to be here with an incredible group of people and be part of an event and an organization whose purpose is to unleash potentials. And as you witnessed from the video this morning, we really have seen what women can do when they are given the opportunities. One of the things that I find most impressive about AWiB is how it has emerged so organically, led by very few from a group of women who found each other as a resource and a source of support. And how it has now evolved into this. It's amazing to see what an incredible platform it has become. A platform where women can become their authentic self, a platform where we're not afraid to challenge each other, to give constructive feedback, to celebrate our differences, but more importantly, a new culture of celebrating each other and celebrating women. I think this is the only platform that I know that takes time to dig deeper into the community and elevate young girls, young women, older women, women from all walks of life, and elevate them and give them platform to value and acknowledge. And I think that is just a fundamental culture shift that I have seen from my early years and growing up in Ethiopia. It's also an incredible time to be in Ethiopia. I think this is my 5th decade in life. And I think this is the first time I have heard a prime minister talk about the value of women and gender equality and how investing in women is not just the right thing to do, but it's the smart thing to do. When we invest in women, we're investing in communities, we're investing in our children, we're investing in our future. So I really feel like AWiB and all of you in this room are going to be the champions that are needed in both helping our government deliver, but also holding the government accountable on the promises that are being made to elevate women and create gender equality. I'm also really grateful for the chance that I'm given to address you. It's really an immense honor and privilege. Although I've lived in the US for the last 30 years, and I get many platforms, for me, this is where my root is, and there is nothing I value more than the opportunity to be home and to talk to my own sisters, daughters, brothers, fathers, and mothers. Because if we are going to bring fundamental change in this community, it's going to be us. We have incredible partners, so many that I see in this room. A woman who's sitting across me, Kadis, who got me involved in Ethiopia, was a very early seed grant. And we're gonna need all of those people to lift us up and to give us opportunity. But at the end of the day, this is going to be the community that's gonna transform Ethiopia. So I take this opportunity really as an immense privilege to be invited here. Thank you. So when the organizers asked me to speak about how could we ensure business and organization sustainability and competitiveness over the long term, I thought of one thing and only one thing. And I'm sure it will not come to a surprise to you, but it's invest in women and girls, right? I mean, I cannot think of anything else society can do when it thinks about sustainability, transformation, or being over the edge that gives the highest return on investment compared to anything else. For those of you who know me, you heard a little bit of an introduction. It may not come as a surprise to you that I have used my voice because I come from a very large family, and maybe it explains why I work in family planning now. But I am one of 11 children, one adopted and 10 birth siblings. But I had a feminist father. I don't know if we have the slides up or if you can move them. Maybe if you can go back. Yeah, go back to that slide. So here's a photo of my father, and can you go back one more? Yeah. And you can see me in my white little dress behind him. And I have a father who was ahead of his time. He had 7 daughters, and he raised us to speak up. I was born when George Pompidou was elected. So instead of calling me Jacqueline Pompidou for the daughter, he called me Pompidou, and he said, you're gonna grow up, and you're gonna be a president, and you're gonna transform nations. And he told each and every daughter that he has how we were going to play a significant role in transforming society. So I was very fortunate to be in a family in an era where girls were suppressed and they were told, "Zimmata warq no." You know, silence is golden. I was told to speak up. I was told to speak up. I was told to use my voice. I mean, incredibly, I have anecdotes. My father used to say, I am the only one in my family who doesn't drink. I don't drink any alcohol. I've never done. I don't drink caffeine. And when people ask me, I will say, imagine what would happen if I did those things, because I'm already very high energy. So I worry about the implication. But my father used to say to my older daughters, he would say, even if you don't drink, you don't need to alienate anybody who does. Right? So he said, just pour your glass. You may be a diplomat tomorrow. You may be an ambassador. Just pour your glass and keep it in front of you. These are small little things that shape young girls. These are small life skills that you take with you. So I really credit my father for shaping the girls in our family, in our relatives, in our circle, to give them a voice, to invest in education. He used to also say, I don't have a whole lot of money, I won't leave you a whole lot of things, but I will invest in your education. And that became a family value. And I come from a group of very strong women who are computer scientists, who are nuclear physicists, who are accountants, and they look at me for being a lawyer and a doctor. They think that's the least accomplishment because it doesn't require, you go through a medical school and you come out. It's sort of kind of in and out. It doesn't require a whole lot of challenge in the process. But that is because education was embedded in our system. That was what was expected of us. But not everyone has that opportunity. Not everyone grows in a family where education is valued. So what happened? I mean, my father was jailed and he spent most of his life in prison when I was growing up. But what happened was I had other people around me who believed in me. So when people talk about leadership and its innate ability, I always disagree, saying, no, there may be people who have profound innate skills to be natural leaders, but leadership is a thought skill. And for me, that's what AWiB does. It takes women and it gives them platforms and it gives them opportunities, emboldens them to express themselves, to occupy space, to stand up, to lift their chins up. And I think each and every one of us need to invest in that. And businesses, if you want to be sustainable, if you want to have the competitive advantage, you have to invest in girls, you have to invest in women, you have to create platforms for them. That is how you get the competitive advantage, not only in Ethiopia, but in the global market. Of course, beyond my personal connection, there is also strong evidence why investing in women and girls can strengthen businesses, organizations, and of course, our country. Investing in women and girls makes companies and organizations more profitable and productive. There is a World Bank report that was released yesterday, just in time, that shows that if companies and businesses and countries invested in women, their gains is in trillions. And I also will later share with you some data from McKinsey. Investing in women and girls also have ripple effect, and I will go through each later. Investing in women and girls also drives economic development. You know, today, women are immense source of untapped potential. You know, when you look at most communities like us, we're only looked at in our ability to have children and our ability to be mothers, which is, I mean, an immense privilege. I always say, if men were the one carrying children, we probably would have been extinct by now. So I don't want to give that ability. I think it's an immense thing, but we are much more than that. We are much more than that. So there is a huge untapped potential. So if we pack one of which, can you go to the next slide? I want to go through the productive, well, it doesn't matter, you can leave it there. You know, let's look at, there is a lot of studies that show that decades of research that have shown that companies with more women executive roles are more profitable and more productive. In fact, there was a study in the US that found that when companies went from having no females in the executive position to having females in the executive positions, their profit goes up by 30%. And again, for most of you that are in this position, this should not come as a surprise. Also, women bring different perspectives, a more supportive environment, effective in problem solving. They are often seen as better mentors. They are seen as more trustworthy, and this is not stuff I'm making up. I'll be happy to share the slides with you. So for those of you, both men and women, who are in business and who have the opportunity to invest, it really makes business sense for you to invest in women. So for nothing else, investing in women can bring returns to your business. Second is, beyond the immediate organizational investment and benefits you do, there is ripple effect. Data, World Bank, and several others have shown that when you invest in women, you're not only investing in individual women, you're investing in their communities, they're investing in countries. For example, we know that we have data that shows when women have access to capital, both the health and well-being of their families and their communities improve. And this is not always the case for my brothers in the room, but there is ample data to show that. And that is why now, if you see a lot of small loans and money is available for women in the community, because that actually uplifts and transforms communities. Women are also more likely than men to reinvest their income in their children and in their families. Again, we see the ripple effect, especially because these children then have a chance to become educated and better adults contributing to society. Women are also drivers of development, and I think there is no better country than Ethiopia to demonstrate that. I mean, the 35,000 health extension workers in Ethiopia that are all women in the remotest parts of the country are the ones that have uplifted the face of this nation. So when you look at Ethiopia reducing under 5 mortality, when you hear about Ethiopia reducing maternal mortality, when you hear about Ethiopia reducing child marriage, of course, my fellow colleague doctors have played a huge role, so do our nurses and midwives. These are the foot soldiers, our health extension workers, which AWiB has recognized one of them as Women of Excellence. Those are the women that have really transformed and uplifted this nation. So you see that they are not only uplifting themselves, but they transform economies and they drive development. So ensuring that women can enter the workforce and are prepared to do so brings a source of labor, not to mention a creative way of thinking. In fact, there was a recent McKinsey study that was disseminated very broadly, and I know our Ministry of Health has seen it, but that study showed that if women participated in the economy at the same level as men, it could add up to $28 trillion. And I know sometimes it's hard to imagine those numbers, but that means that's 26% annual global GDP by 2025. So that's transformative resources that we are not just tapping because we just don't see the full potential of women. And that means it's basically, if you take that number, it's the combined economy of, greater than the combined economy of China and the United States combined. So that's really the power of investing in women. So when we invest in women, everyone wins, not just businesses, communities, countries, and nations. Now, I suspect will come to no surprise to you that we're dramatically underinvesting in women, not just businesses. Businesses are made up of communities. As a community, as government, as nations, we don't invest in women. And this is not unique to Ethiopia. Just in developing countries in general, women are 20% less likely than men to have bank accounts, which means women are less likely to save money and accrue financial capitals. That's very common in many developing countries, but our neighboring countries like Rwanda and Kenya are changing that. You know, every time I have an opportunity, my space is health, but anytime I have an opportunity to collaborate, to talk, any government official, I will say I don't know why we're not traveling to Rwanda, where they have over 60% of their parliament is women, their workforce is women. They're really heavily investing in women and girls. And part of Rwanda's success story, why they have become the economic giant, why they're making progress, is because they are intentionally investing in women and girls. So that role is not only for businesses in terms of sustainability and the competitive age, it goes also, in fact, more importantly for nations. Coming to my field, there are more than 200 million women globally that want to control their fertility. They're done having children. They don't want to have more kids, but don't have access to family planning. They cannot. I mean, some of them don't even have the basic knowledge that they can control their body, that they all think this is an act of God. God gives, God takes away. So just the basic gap and lack of access to health services, to be able to control your reproductive destiny and hence your future, is something that we're not investing in. Again, Ethiopia has made significant progress, but there is a lot of work to do right now. 30%, well, according to ministry, 26%, but 26 to 30% of married women who have had children, don't want to have more kids, are seeking contraception, are not accessing it. So definitely we have a lot of room to invest. Globally, there are about 865 million women who have their economic potential compromised because of preventable things like, they're having more children they don't want to, they're having unsafe abortion and having mortality and morbidity from that. So I think there is significant investment we have to make in that space. So yes, there are challenges, but I also want to share with you some of the progresses in Ethiopia. From 1990 to 2014, we have gone from having our total population of married women. Unfortunately, the way the studies are designed, they look at only married women and not unmarried women or single women who are trying to prevent a pregnancy. But if you look at just married women, access to contraception has gone from 4% to 34%. So significant increase. We have a lot of work to do. I told you there is still 30% unmet need, but there has been significant increase. Fertility has declined. The average size, I told you I come from a family of 11. The average size of family just in the last 10 years has declined from 6 to 4. And in fact, that is for the whole nation. So if you look at pockets of Addis and other cities, I mean, a lot of people are shocked when I tell them I have 4 kids. They will say, how do you have the time? How do you manage? Because most of my professional colleagues, and I'm sure many of you in this room, have limited the number of children you have because you not only want to have them, but you also want to give them the best opportunity in life, and you want to make time for yourselves. Over a similar period, primary school enrollment has more than quadrupled in Ethiopia. But what has not happened, and in fact, our medical student enrollment has increased dramatically, but what we're not seeing is as we climb up, we're not seeing more women being represented at the highest level. So for example, if I take medicine, we see a large number of women entering medical school. And we even see them graduating, which is really fantastic. But when it comes to entering into the specialty field of whether becoming an obstetrics and gynecology or an orthopedic surgeon, you absolutely see very few or no women. Most of the surgical subspecialties don't accommodate women because it's very demanding. They're still expected to take care of the household role. And also there aren't role models that say, yeah, you can have children and you can go to school and be a professional and be a leader and still fulfill your role, the traditionally expected role that Bilan was describing that is expected from the community. So yes, we've made progress, but we still have a lot of challenges. And I think the business community, the NGO community, the international community has a huge contribution that we can continue to make when it comes to gender equality and creating the right space for women and girls to bring transformative change. As you know, for example, right now, there are almost the same number of women in the labor force as there are men. If you look at everyone that's entering the labor force, including day laborers and professionals. But men fill 2 times as many professional and technical roles, 3 times as many leadership roles, and 4 times as many political roles in our country. So that's why we don't see women as we climb up. There are the same number of women I told you that are entering the workforce, but when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to platforms, this is just one of the very few. The place that makes me the most uncomfortable, and our health ministers, the past 4 or 5 that I've worked with all know this, is that you will go to the ministry and every time there is a meeting in the room, you don't see the scene, right? I mean, this is where AWiB has gone out and actively sought and encouraged businesses to support women, to sponsor women so that they sit here and listen and participate. Oftentimes, if they are in the room, they are there to serve coffee or tea. And even the professional women, you don't see them participating. So we need really transformative change. And I think the business community needs to invest in women. And I think platforms like AWiB is where you see these women being empowered to find their voices, to speak up, to demand. Like, why am I not being invited? Why am I not sitting on the table? So I think we have a lot of work to do. And I think if you want to ensure your business sustainability and you have an advantage, an edge over other businesses, certainly you need to make these investments. So, you know, there's a lot of work to do. When I look at myself and look at the statistics, it sort of kind of reinforces how those so far sitting in this room, we are the exception than the norm, right? Most of our sisters, our mothers, are fetching water. They're carrying firewood in their backs. They are taking care of children. So we're really the very few privileged that are sitting here having this dialogue about what are we going to do. So whenever people ask me, I say, we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is the room that's going to transform society. This is the room that's going to create opportunities for other women. You know, I, for one, know how different my journey could have been had I not been fortunate enough to have parents who are willing to embrace their outspoken child instead of silencing me and advocating to speak. But more importantly, as I was growing up, I had people who said, we're going to mentor you, we're going to support you. I have a feminist husband. I met my husband when I was 21. He has lived in the US for about 10 years, and he was waiting for the right Ethiopian women. Of course, when we met, I was everything wrong that he was looking for in Ethiopian women. His first question to me was, do you eat resega? And I said, I don't. The second question is, do you like coffee and the coffee ceremony and itan? And I said, I don't. And the third thing is, he said, I'm dying to have some qimam berberreot. And I said, I don't. And he said, I don't think I can be the right husband for you. And I said, you know what, give me time. I will learn all those things, because I saw in him a feminist agenda. I saw in him, when I met him, I was just an undergrad, and I was at this bifurcation in my life saying, I really want to go to medical school. I really want to go to law school. I want to work in women's health in Ethiopia, but I sort of feel like women's rights is equally important, and physicians don't have voices, and how do I embrace this? And he looked at me and he just said, we don't have to get married. I don't think how long it's going to take you. I'm going to support you. And he said, I'm going to work, you can go to school. And I was in school for 17 years after I left here. Think about it. Medical school, residency, specialty, and somebody will come and say to him, is your wife going to have a child? You know, just the typical parents, relatives. I mean, he literally guarded me and said, no, she has. He used to say, she has the capacity to transform the world that I don't have, so I'm going to make my investments in her. So for me, each and every one of us have that ability, right? Each and every one of us in this room have that ability to transform lives, to invest in women, to invest in girls, to uplift our communities, which is really not a big part of our culture. I'm going to be very frank. I know we have few friends, but part of the cultural change, the cultural transformation we need is uplifting others and holding each other accountable when we fail to do that. Because oftentimes when we get the platforms, it becomes about us and not our community. So, you know, I don't have to tell you how very rarely that this pathway is available for many women and girls. So I think it starts with us, it starts with organizations like AWiB, it starts with businesses, but I really want to lay out 3 concrete steps that we can take to transform the lives of women, and therefore transforming your businesses and your organizations and having a lasting impact in our communities. First is the work we do. So for me, as an OB-GYN by training, that's my day job, and I'll tell you about my night job. I'm responsible for supporting programs and efforts like you heard about the Center for International Training, Reproductive Training Program, or CERT. So in 2000, I think I finished medical school and I thought I will go to Ethiopia and change the world. That was my passion. But when I came, I had just graduated and I had a degree, but I did not have anything. Like I had no resources, and little did realize when I come to Ethiopia, somebody was going to expect me to bring something with me other than my knowledge, right? We live in a world where we measure our partnerships by donor money. What resources can they bring? How are you going to leverage me? How are you going to fix this problem for me? One which is very understandable. But at the meantime, we have a wealth of intellectuals, women with no formal knowledge but wisdom that we don't create a platform for. So for me, one of the transformative events in my life was meeting Dr. Tedros, who was then a regional health bureau head in Tigray. This is in 1999. And I also met Dr. Shifarao, who subsequently became a deputy health minister, an environment minister, an education minister, federal minister, and so on. And both of them, I say to them, I am just finishing, I don't have money, but I'm really committed, and what can I do? And in a very humbling way, they showed me how my education was so useless for the challenges they were facing in Ethiopia. I mean, which was very humbling, right? Because I frankly did not know what maternal mortality was, because women don't die where I trained. I mean, maybe we have one maternal death every 2 years, and it's a sentinel event where we all gathered and say, what happened? Like here, women are dropping like left and right, and it's sort of, even the word nafsa tur comes from when a woman is pregnant, tur lainat. She can die any. So we are dispensable. So here I am talking to them saying, oh, I can start laparoscopic myomectomy, I do this, I do that. They're looking at me saying, no, that's not what we need. But at least they were willing to talk to me. They did not dismiss me for being a young, not very resourced person who was coming to contribute. But then through the years, as we started collaborating, one of the things that I noticed was that women were absent from medical school. They were absent from residency. So I was given the charge of working at St. Paul. Why don't you take St. Paul? It's a new medical school. Why don't you invest and cultivate young students, which is a tremendous honor. Can you imagine being given a gift of working with young people, open minds that you can transform and shape in a way where they feel the human suffering that's so pervasive in our culture? And that's what I talked about. So Qidis was heading Twinning Center then, and they said, we'll give you $250,000, and how are you going to do it? And we took that seed money and transformed St. Paul to really one of the best institutions that exists today. But we did it with a few group of committed individuals, mostly women. My partner in crime, Leah Tadessa, who was also an AWiB Woman of Excellence. But that just required for me to go out of my way, find young people, invest in them, not just young women, young men, right, who also need mentors, who also need support. And as I said, for us, we can't just uplift ourselves. We also need the men in our community to uplift us. So I think taking your opportunity, your positions, your roles that you have now, and not take for granted that there are going to be many paths for women to get to where they are today, and really investing in that is something really critical and concrete that you can do. The second recommendation really that I have is, how do we capture opportunities? How do we how do we use our voices to lift others up? And again, women are the very natural thing I do, but also men. So one of the things, for example, my role is that I told you, like, we could lift ourselves, but we also need others to uplift us. So one of the people that has shaped me, that I had also invested in, is Dr. Tedros. 2 years ago, I was in Geneva when I heard a conversation there was going to be a new director general. It was June. I came to him and I said, I think you should run for this position. And he said, just get out of here. I mean, there's a lot of work to do in Ethiopia. I don't need to be in Geneva. And I said, no, global public health is so important. And we need leaders who are really invested in people, who care fundamentally about the poorest of the poor that are at the bottom of the pyramid. So I pushed him, I volunteered, I will do everything. I ran his campaign, he got elected, I became the transition chair. And one of the things we noticed, for me, that's where I live, right? I think about the role of women. We get to the World Health Organization, and when you look at the top leadership, this is directors, assistant director generals, deputy director general, 80% of the top leadership comes from 4 donor countries. So mind you, the World Health Organization is an organization that has 194 member states. So 4 countries have 80% of the directorship, and almost exclusively out of 36 positions, 32 are men. So one of the things we were able to do is, as you can see from this picture, I chaired his transition and search team, and we searched really hard, because oftentimes I hear, oh, they're not in the talent pool. Oh, yes, they are. You have to find them. You have to look for them. So what we did was we looked at every corner of the world and ended up putting 64% of the top leadership for the first time in World Health Organization's history is now women, and women from all walks of life. So you can use your position, your opportunity, your organization to uplift and consciously put women in position, and you will see the return on investment. But the third, and I think most important thing for me, is using your voice. Can I have next slide, please? Using your voice for many things. You know, we have the power to influence, the power to change reality for others, the power to trailblaze newer, more inclusive, more sustainable societies, businesses in Ethiopia. These are slides I want you to pay attention to. This is the first picture where you see all men and 1 woman in blue. I was sitting at the front row of the World Bank and the government of Japan's universal health coverage meeting in Tokyo in December. And they asked all the head of agencies come to the stage. So I sat there and looked up, and all of a sudden, all I see is a lot of men and just 1 woman. But what just hit me was that this woman, Marika, the head of Global Fund, was being replaced by Peter Sands, who was a male. So post this picture, all the heads of the UN agencies, the big donor agencies, Global Fund is Peter Sands, Gavi is Seth Berkley, Tedros is at the WHO. I mean, you just call them. IPPF, International, is a good friend Alvaro. I mean, these are amazing men, but there are as amazing women out there. So I just sat there, took this picture, and sent a Twitter saying, really? Like, this is what we're going to do? And we're going to have also, they may not be heads of agencies, but there are so many women who have technical expertise in this space, in universal health coverage, in financing, in supply chain. So we started a Twitter hashtag, where are the women? And started demanding women be included in panels. So WHO now has a policy. They will not invite anyone, or Dr. Tedros will not accept a panel if there are no women on the panel. So this is using your voice to leverage others. And also, when you see young people, these are 2 bright young women as I was at Harvard, really creating room for young people, young women, elevating them. I mean, I get invited to speak all the time. I mean, I have lived long enough, I've been around, I've had enough networks. Oftentimes when I get invited, I pass that to younger women. I will say, I will be in a panel, I will answer questions, but create platform for young people, because young people usually are on the listening end. So I think using our voices to elevate others is extremely important. But just to add to that, on my way here, I was coming through Turkey, and our current minister, Dr. Amir, who's, for those of you who are in health who have not had an opportunity to interact with him, I highly urge you. He is going to be a transformative leader. But he posted this photo with a group of orthopedic and trauma surgeons saying they came to talk to me, we're going to change, all that stuff. Fantastic. So I tweeted back and I said, well, Dr. Amir, that's amazing. It's congratulations to all of us. But I said, where are the women? Right? He's not even thinking. He's posting a photo with 17 men, but it's such the norm. We don't even stop to say it. I'm not like shaming or, making you feel guilty, but it requires intentionality. It requires you to be active. So it's the same for your businesses. It requires you to look around and say, oh, like, what are we missing? I mean, how can we have a just and inclusive society if half of are not sitting on the table? So what was remarkable about him is he replied back and he said, I hear you. I want to do something. Can you come? So literally we sat very late last night and we have started developing the strategy to create the environment, the space that's inclusive of women. But we're going to start out by doing the basic assessment. Why are they not going to orthopedic surgery? Why are they not going to trauma surgery? We have data from St. Paul, for example. when at entrance exam, women don't do very well because a lot of them have, especially women who come from emerging areas outside of Addis, because they have work-life balance. They're running households, they're taking care of their siblings, they're kind of playing a parent. But once they get in, our top scorers are always women. So that tells us with the right mentoring and the right support, we can help these women excel beyond any imagination. So I think the intentionality is extremely important. Can you go to the next slide, please? But this is what I want to leave you with. This is both for the men and the women, and this is what Madeleine Albright said, and I will let you read it yourself. Because I think many of us find ourselves here. We get comfortable, we become complacent, we get the podium, so it becomes, power is an aphrodisiac. I mean, you get used to it and you're on the stage, it's exciting. So we should feel terrible if we are not using our opportunity to lift up other women, help other women, elevate other women. So if you don't leave with anything else from this talk, please leave with this, because I know those of you in this room are the privileged ones that can make the difference. So we must make noise. We must be grateful, have gratitude for the support. I want to celebrate AWiB because elevating and celebrating our allies, especially young people, and forging a new path, this has to be the way forward. We need to speak truth to power, and that means that's going to put you at odds with donors, with government officials, with partners. But at least the truth will set you free. So even if it is hard, being able to speak your truth is extremely important. And we need to hold people accountable, including AWiB, people who organize these meetings, partners in the room, each other. Because at the end of the day, if there is no accountability, if there is no measurement, we don't know that we're making progress. So all of us have a very unique opportunity. I certainly feel like I've been dealt with very good cards, despite the odds, despite losing my parents at a very young age, despite my parents losing everything they had growing up, despite growing up stepping over dead bodies during the Derg era, despite the glim and the darkness that I have grown up with, I always see the best in my country and the best in my people. And that is what has uplifted me and that has kept me going. And I always feel like despite the difficulties, the future is always brighter. But many women, especially young girls, don't have that opportunity. So I really, really urge each and every one of you, even if you go home and say, who's that one girl who is sitting in your office? It could be your administrative assistant, it could be your technical expert, or it could be the maid who's serving your home. But how am I gonna uplift her? Because it's not only for the professional women. I mean, I think we can have a whole session about the labor force and what happened to women that are domestic workers in this country. But I think we succeed and fail collectively, and if we don't hold each other accountable and if we don't support each other, we're not going to make progress. We can't expect others to do it. So we do have the opportunity to be the change that creates a foundation for Ethiopia's future. Certainly, lasting legacy, businesses, one of the indicators we should measure them by should be not only what are they doing to sustain their business, but what are they doing to promote gender equality. We have the power to address inequity, to promote women's leadership, and to invest in girls. For me, if I will say something to the business owners in the room and others, investing in platforms like not necessarily just AWiB, but really creating more space. I mean, we have half of our population women and half of them are reproductive age. So creating more platform to uplift women, to give them voices, is really a much critical need. But thank you for having me and bringing us together. It's really an immense honor and privilege for me to be among so many incredible women and few men. And I would say, please continue the hard work. I'm immensely proud of you. And if I could be of any resource, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.